Welcome to the Deep Seek Diaries. We're really glad you could join us today. As you know, what we love doing here is diving deep into, well, some truly fascinating sources, cutting through all the noise to bring you the core insights, those aha moments, stuff you can actually use without having to read hundreds of pages yourself. Pure, impactful knowledge. And today we're diving into a real classic, one that's been changing lives for, almost 100 years? Florence Scovel Shinn's The Game of Life and How to Play It. You often see it co-authored with Kate Large in newer editions, keeping that wisdom alive.
That's right. And it's amazing, isn't it? Published originally way back in 1925. But it's not some dusty old relic. It's ideas. They've really endured. Millions have found guidance in it. So our mission today really is to unpack its core philosophy, what's it really saying, and also, what are people today saying about it? We'll dig into loads of reader feedback and, crucially, pull out the practical bits, the actionable stuff you might want to try. It's got this almost legendary status in self-help, so let's see why.
Yeah, I'm genuinely excited for this. A book that basically says, hey, here's how to create a new reality.
Yeah.
That's pretty compelling stuff. It feels less like theory and more like finding a hidden instruction manual for life. Okay, before we really jump in, just a quick reminder, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video. You're listening to the Deep Seek Diaries, and you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the usual suspects. We've put links to everything we talk about today, books, sites, you name it, down in the description. Also, please check out our terms and conditions when you get a moment. Okay, right, grab a coffee, sit back, and let's get into it. All right, the game of life and how to play it. Let's start at the beginning. What's the absolute core idea here, the fundamental philosophy Scovel Shinn is laying down?
Well, at its heart, the main thing is this idea that simply changing your perspective on life isn't just nice, it's fundamental. It's how you actually reshape your reality. She argues life isn't just random chaos that happens to you. Not at all. She frames it as a game, which is a powerful metaphor, right?
A game, yeah. That implies rules, strategy, agency.
Exactly. Not a game of pure chance, but one with... If you understand these rules and really learn to apply them, you can absolutely win. Winning meaning, achieving what you desire, living fully, experiencing abundance.
Okay, so it's not just wishful thinking then, it's active.
Very active. She talks about it as energetic wisdom. It's not just intellectual, like learning facts. It's more about aligning yourself vibrationally with the universe. It's this wisdom that gives you the guidance and insight into creating a new reality today. And what's amazing, like we said, written nearly 100 years ago, but readers consistently call the teachings simple and timeless. They feel it stood the test of time.
That simplicity is key, isn't it? In a world full of complicated self-help stuff.
Totally. It cuts through the noise. It makes these big ideas feel accessible, actionable. You don't need a PhD in metaphysics to get it. It's direct, almost elemental. And maybe that's its secret sauce, why it keeps resonating.
So, if life is this game, and we have agency, what are the key rules? What are the specific plays she suggests we need to master to, play well?
Right. So building on that game idea, she outlines several core principles. The first, and arguably the biggest, is all about mindset and belief. The book states it very plainly. Your strongest beliefs will be fulfilled. Period. This isn't just a nice affirmation. It's presented as like a fundamental law of how life operates, how it responds to you.
Okay, so what you truly believe deep down is what shows up.
Exactly. And it's fascinating because this was decades before the law of attraction became a huge buzzword. She was laying the groundwork. One reader really nailed it, saying, life force responds to your intention, actions, and beliefs, not words alone. That's crucial. You can say affirmations all day.
But if you don't believe them,
they won't stick. It's the underlying conviction, combined with actions that align, that makes the difference. So just saying positive things isn't enough. It needs that deep belief. It really positions her work as foundational, right, providing that historical basis for a lot of modern manifestation ideas.
Makes sense. So belief is number one. What else?
Tied directly to that is what she calls the power of right thinking. She really hammers this home. She says, the principles of right thinking and feeling right about something can't be overemphasized enough. It's about consciously cultivating a mental and emotional state that matches what you want to attract.
Right thinking, as opposed to wrong thinking, presumably.
Precisely. And she talks about how wrong thinking, maybe negative self-talk, doubt, worry, focusing on lack, can actually sabotage your efforts, even if you're trying to be positive. It's like having one foot on the gas and one on the brake, If you're affirming abundance, but secretly, deep down, you believe money is scarce or hard to get.
That underlying belief wins out.
That's her point. The wrong thinking overrides the words. She gives examples of people struggling because their inner conviction didn't match their outward statements. That led to the negative outcomes. So it's a discipline, consciously steering your thoughts and feelings, not letting them just run wild or be dictated by, say, the news or what someone else says. It's about governing your inner world. That's presented as the master key to playing the game. Requires real self-awareness.
Okay, belief, right thinking.
Yeah.
What else is crucial in her rule book?
The third big one is overcoming fear. This is huge in the book. The message is crystal clear. Never let fear dictate your thoughts or actions, as it will always lead to the wrong outcome. Always. It's not just a suggestion. It's like a fundamental rule. Break it, and you're heading off course.
Fear as the ultimate obstacle.
Exactly. She sees fear as the total opposite of faith and right thinking. It's the main thing that trips us up, stops us manifesting what we want. It can make us take actions that sabotage ourselves or just freeze us so we do nothing.
Yep.
So managing that fear, actively choosing faith and positive expectation instead, is an ongoing process. It's central.
So it's not just about feeling fear, but about recognizing it and consciously choosing not to let it drive your decisions.
Yes. Recognizing it when it pops up as doubt, anxiety, worry, whatever, and deliberately pivoting away from it towards trust. It requires understanding that your inner state directly creates your outer reality.
Oh.
So fear becomes this manifestation blocker you have to consciously dismantle.
Wow. That's a very active stance against fear, not just hoping it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have these core principles: belief, right thinking, overcoming fear. Now, you mentioned the sources talk about a distinct spiritual or religious angle to her work. How does that fit in?
Yes, that's a really interesting and sometimes divisive aspect of the book. You definitely picked up on that correctly. It's written in, well, a religious style, as the analysis puts it. It uses the Judeo-Christian God as a philosophical basis, and she makes frequent references to biblical parables. She often uses terms like God, or refers to your inner Jesus Christ or the divine power interchangeably with the universe or the law.
Okay, so quite overtly religious language for the time.
Very much so. It reflects her background in the New Thought movement of the early 20th century. And this is where reader reactions really diverge today. For quite a few readers, this integration is actually a major plus. They find it comforting, adds depth. The analysis notes that Scovel Shinn cleverly manages to link the Bible and the teachings of Christ with the law of attraction, basically. Some readers found this connection comforting. One reviewer who was specifically looking at the juxtaposition of the law and Christianity really liked it, saying the Bible references are not overpowering.
So for those with that background, it kind of reinforces the message, makes it feel more grounded or authoritative.
Exactly. It provides a familiar framework, a familiar language for understanding these universal principles. It adds that layer of spiritual depth.
But I sense a but coming.
Well, yes. For readers who aren't coming from that specific background or maybe prefer a more secular approach, this can be a sticking point. Interestingly, though, even here, the core message seems pretty adaptable. One reviewer made a great point, suggesting it's easy to mentally substitute these words for more contemporary secular versions of God or the divine, such as the universe.
Ah, so you can kind of translate it in your head if the specific religious terms don't resonate.
Seems so. It highlights that the underlying principles, intention, belief, manifestation, can stand on their own regardless of the original wrapping. The law itself works, whether you call it divine or universal.
Okay, but there must be some who just find it off-putting.
Oh, absolutely. We have to be clear about that. It definitely draws mixed reactions and some pretty strong criticism, too. Some readers found it just very focused on Christianity, or felt there were far too many biblical quotes. For them, it was not what I expected. Maybe they were looking for a more general self-help or metaphysical guide. One really critical review called it a stream of spiritual consciousness from the author.
Ouch.
Yeah. And that same review pointed to what they saw as ridiculously false claims, such as bad thoughts can cause rheumatism. Now, our job here isn't to debate those claims, but to report that this is how some readers reacted. It's important to show that side, too. So while the core message hits home for many, the specific style and some of the assertions tied to the spiritual framework can definitely be a point of friction or even disbelief for others.
It really shows how presentation and framing matter so much, doesn't it? Even with a powerful core message. Okay, so we've got the what the philosophy. This leads me to the how. How does Scovel Shinn suggest we actually do this? What are the practical exercises, the concrete steps for playing this game of life?
Right, and this is where the book really shines, moving from theory to action. One huge piece of practical advice mentioned again and again by readers is about following your intuition. She stresses listening to those divine clues, those gut feelings or nudges that lead you to your goal, no matter how strange they seem to the rational mind.
So trusting that little voice, even if it doesn't make logical sense at the time.
Precisely. It's about trusting that inner guidance system. Scovel Shinn suggests these intuitive hits aren't random. They're specific guidance, like breadcrumbs on the path to what you desire. Acting on them, even when your logical brain is screaming, "That's weird," takes courage, but she insists it's essential. Often, these seemingly strange steps lead to the perfect, unexpected solution.
I like the divine breadcrumbs. Okay, what else?
Another very powerful, very practical tool is using the right verbiage in creating affirmations. One reader specifically mentioned how helpful the book was in teaching how to switch your verbiage, consciously choosing words that align with success and abundance, and how it inspired them to create personalized affirmations inspired by her style of expression.
Okay, affirmations. That sounds familiar. Lots of self-help talks about that.
Yes, but here's a fascinating twist from Scovel Shinn. She apparently stated, according to this reviewer, that if you truly believe in a thing, then you only ever need to affirm it once.
Once. Really. Not like chanting it 100 times a day.
Exactly. That's a radical departure from a lot of modern advice, isn't it? It puts all the emphasis on the quality of the belief at the moment you affirm it, not the quantity of repetitions. If you truly deeply believe it when you say it, that single instance has immense power. Repeating it endlessly might even signal a lack of real conviction, like you're trying to convince yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That changes things.
Yeah.
Quality over quantity and belief. Okay, interesting. What other practical actions?
She also strongly guides readers to prepare for the things we want out of life. This is crucial. It's not enough to just wish or affirm. You have to actively make space for what you desire. Act as if it's already on its way.
Act as if? How so? Like practical examples.
Yeah, tangible things. Like if you want new clothes, maybe clear out some space in your closet now. If you desire a partner, maybe set an extra place at the table sometimes, or make sure your home feels welcoming for two. If you want a specific job, prepare for it, study for it, update your resume before you even have an interview lined up. This preparation sends a powerful signal, she suggests. It demonstrates your faith, your readiness, your expectation. You're not just hoping, you're making room.
I see. It's like telling the universe, okay, I'm ready, send it over.
Pretty much. It aligns your actions with your intentions in a very physical, grounded way.
Makes sense. Any other key practices?
Yes, a really important one is the principle of giving and receiving. She emphasizes the importance of being generous and giving freely, or your time and money, as well as being open to receive. This isn't just about being nice. It's presented as a fundamental energetic principle, a key rule of the game.
Like, what goes around comes around.
Essentially, yes. Giving freely, without expecting something specific back in return, opens up the channels for abundance to flow to you. It creates flow. It demonstrates your belief in abundance, that there's enough to go around. And crucially, you also have to be willing and open to receive graciously when things come your way. A reader actually mentioned this principle contributed to the book's value for money, suggesting it has tangible benefits. It's about creating and participating in a cycle of abundance.
Giving and receiving. It's a loop. Okay, one more.
One final point that comes through, perhaps more implicitly, is the importance of self-reflection and taking notes. A reviewer found it really helpful to take written notes of important points that I feel I need to work on in my own life. They also noted the book's format helps well-written and concise rather than repetitive. This suggests it's not a book you just blaze through once. It's meant to be engaged with actively. Read, reflect, see how it applies to you, maybe jot down insights or affirmations specific to your situation. It becomes almost like a personal workbook for mastering this game.
That makes perfect sense. It's all about active engagement, isn't it? Not passive reading. It's a guide to be lived, constantly applied, tweaked. It really emphasizes that playing this game well takes conscious, ongoing effort. Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what thousands of other readers felt about all this, let's just pause for a second. Hope you're finding this deep dive useful so far. Just a reminder, please do subscribe to the Deep Seek Diaries and give this video a like if you're enjoying it. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those places. And remember, all the resources we're mentioning, links to the book and so on, are right there in the description for you. All right. So we've looked at the philosophy, the rules, the practical steps Scovel Shinn lays out. Now, let's zoom out and look at the big picture from the readers. Over 4,600 reviews on Amazon. What's the overall verdict? How does the game of life land with people today?
The verdict is pretty overwhelmingly positive. It's actually quite remarkable for a book this old. On Amazon, it holds a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars based on, 4,668 global ratings. That's a lot of feedback. And digging deeper, 74%, almost 3/4, gave it 5 stars. Another 13% gave it 4 stars.
Wow, so that's what, 87% giving it 4 or 5 stars? Nearly 9 out of 10 people find it really valuable.
Exactly. That level of consistent high praise across such a large sample size really speaks volumes. It suggests the core message is genuinely hitting home for a lot of people across different times and backgrounds. It clearly resonates.
Okay, so people generally love it. But what specifically do they love? What are the common themes that keep coming up in those glowing reviews? What makes it so appealing?
Well, several key strengths really stand out when you sift through all that feedback. They explain its enduring power. First off, readability. This comes up constantly. We're talking 136 positive mentions versus only 2 negative. That's huge. People call it highly readable, amazing, very interesting, and simple yet profound. Someone specifically praised the format, saying it's well-written and concise rather than repetitive. That's a big deal compared to some modern books that can feel padded out,
Yeah, concise is good. Get to the point,
Ah.
especially with something potentially life-changing.
Right. And this readability is striking for a book from 1925. The language, while maybe a touch dated here and there for some, is generally very clear, direct. One reviewer even called it no flannel. It gets straight to the heart of the ideas without excessive jargon or theory. That makes it incredibly accessible.
Okay, readable and concise. What else?
Inspiration. This got 89 positive mentions, and interestingly, 0 negative ones in the analysis, so universally inspiring for those who mention it. Readers say it offers philosophical reminders, an interesting perspective on life, and it's just hugely inspiring. It's seen as a practical tool for actually changing your perspective and finding different ways of thinking and approaching difficult tasks to make life easier.
So it doesn't just inform, it actively motivates. It lifts people up.
Exactly. It seems to act as a real catalyst. It gives people hope, encouragement, and a sense of empowerment to tackle challenges differently. It's not just information, it's activation energy.
Nice. Activation energy, I like that. What's next on the list of praises?
Closely linked to readability is ease of writing, which got 47 positive mentions. People describe it as easy to read and understand, simple, friendly, and straightforward. And remember that person who finished it in one sitting? That really says something about how smoothly it flows.
Definitely. It doesn't feel like homework then.
Right. It's not a dense academic slog. It invites you in. And again, that lack of complex theory, like trying to link everything to quantum mechanics, seems to be a relief for many. They can just focus on the core message and how to apply it. This ease is surely a big factor in its lasting appeal across so many different kinds of readers.
Makes sense. Anything else significant on the positive side?
One more, maybe smaller in number, but still telling. Value for money. Got 5 positive mentions. People felt it was absolutely on the money, offering good value. That comment about the giving-receiving principle contributing to its value fits here too. It suggests readers feel they're getting tangible, practical wisdom that actually improves their lives financially, spiritually, emotionally. It delivers real benefit for the cost, making it feel like a worthwhile investment.
Okay, so overall, readable, inspiring, easy to get into, and delivers real value. That's a strong positive case. But let's be real, no book is perfect for everyone. What about the other side? Where did opinions differ? Or what drew actual criticism?
Absolutely, and looking at those differing views is just as important for understanding the full picture. There were definitely areas of mixed reaction. One interesting one was the era it was written in. Out of 7 mentions, it was split. 4 positive, 3 negative. Some loved its timeless quality, feeling the message transcends the 1920s context. Others, though, found the language or examples a touch old-fashioned or slightly dated, even if they still appreciated the core ideas.
So a bit of a paradox there. Old yet timeless.
Exactly. It suggests the fundamental insights are strong enough to shine through, even if the surface layer feels a bit historical to some modern readers. The core laws, she argues, don't change.
Okay. What else caused division? I suspect the religious aspect might come up again here.
You guessed it. The Bible references were a key point of divergence, perfectly split. 3 positive mentions, 3 negative out of the 6 counted. As we touched on before, some found the way she links the Bible and the teachings of Christ with the law to be comforting, and appreciated that the references weren't overpowering. It added a welcome spiritual dimension for them. But an equal number had the opposite reaction. They found too many biblical quotes, felt it was very focused on Christianity, and just not what I expected.
And that's where those stronger criticisms came in too, right? The stream of consciousness and false claims comments.
Yes, precisely. That criticism about ridiculously false claims such as bad thoughts can cause rheumatism falls under this umbrella too. It shows how for some, the specific spiritual framework and perhaps some of the associated assertions from that era were not just stylistic issues but actual barriers to accepting the message or led to skepticism. It's crucial we acknowledge that strong negative reaction alongside the positive ones.
Definitely. It highlights how personal belief systems really shape how we receive information. Okay, any other major criticisms?
There was one very specific but quite damning one-star review worth mentioning for balance. This wasn't about the philosophy itself, but the physical book this person received. They called it a very flimsy A4 printed thick pamphlet of a book. And crucially, they said it was very hard to read as every sentence is underlined. This led to extreme disappointment.
So a production quality issue with a specific edition rather than a critique of Scovel Shinn's ideas?
Exactly. But it's important because it shows how the reader's experience can be ruined by things like formatting or poor printing. Regardless of how good the content might be, the medium matters. It's a practical barrier to accessing the wisdom.
That's a really good point. It's a reminder that how information is presented is almost as important as the information itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so despite these definite points of friction, the era, the religious language, even bad print jobs, the overwhelming takeaway seems to be positive. The core message of personal power, shaping your reality through belief. That seems to cut through for most people.
I think that's exactly right. When you step back, despite the valid criticisms or stylistic preferences, the sheer endurance of this book, the consistently high ratings, the passionate positive reviews, it all points to something fundamentally powerful in its message. It offers this framework life as a game you can influence through your inner state, your thoughts, beliefs, intentions. It puts the power back in your hands.
Right. It shifts the focus from blaming external circumstances to mastering your internal world.
Precisely. It argues you're not just reacting, you're creating. And that idea, that internal locus of control, seems to be profoundly empowering for people, regardless of the specific wrapping it comes in. It's why it remains a touchstone.
And listening to this, on your own journey for knowledge, maybe trying to make sense of things, diving into a classic like this really highlights how certain core truths just keep showing up, doesn't it? This idea of perspective shaping reality, it echoes through so much philosophy and psychology. Scovel Shinn just gave it this unique, actionable spin back in 1925. Makes you wonder what it is about these ideas that gives them such staying power.
I think it's that unique mix we talked about. It's part self-help, part spiritual philosophy, but crucially, full of practical, actionable advice. It manages to bridge that gap between big, abstract ideas and, okay, what do I actually do on Tuesday morning? Whether you connect with the specific spiritual language or translate it into more secular terms like the universe or consciousness, the core mechanics she describes, belief, intention, overcoming fear, intuition, giving, receiving these, seem to resonate on a deep universal level. It's less a book you just read and more one that invites you to actively play the game differently, to step up as a conscious creator.
A conscious creator. I like that. So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. If life really is a game, and if your strongest beliefs truly do shape your score, what rule or principle from this deep dive feels most resonant for you right now? What aspect of your own game are you ready to commit to mastering next, maybe pushing beyond what you thought was possible? Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. I really hope you enjoyed exploring the game of life and how to play it with us today. Please don't forget to check out all the links of both related resources that are all waiting for you in the description section. And if you haven't already, please do hit those subscribe and like buttons as you head off. It really helps us keep bringing you these explorations. Until the next episode of the Deep Seek Diaries, goodbye.